All right, buckle up, buttercups, because we're about to dive headfirst into the surprisingly hip world of Stoicism. Forget the dusty old philosophers in togas. We're talking about how this ancient wisdom is rocking the socks off modern life. Welcome to the channel, where we try to make sense of this beautiful mess we call existence, one Stoic-ish step at a time. Ever feel like life's throwing you more curveballs than a confused baseball pitcher? Yeah, me too. We're constantly bombarded with notifications, deadlines, and the eternal question of what to binge watch next. But what if I told you there's a secret weapon, a mental superpower that's been around for centuries and is making a serious comeback today? That's right, folks. We're talking about Stoicism. Now, before your eyes glaze over and you think, oh, great, another lecture on old dead guys, hear me out. Stoicism isn't about being emotionless robots. It's about understanding what's within our control and what isn't, and focusing our energy on the stuff we can actually do something about. Think of it as your personal mental shield against the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And trust me, fortune can be pretty outrageous these days. So, where did this whole Stoicism thing come from? Well, way back in ancient Greece and Rome, thinkers like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius were wrestling with the same big questions we are today. How do we live a good life? How do we deal with suffering? How do we not lose our minds when the Wi-Fi goes down? Their answers formed the basis of Stoicism, and surprisingly, they're still incredibly relevant. The core principles are actually pretty straightforward. First up, virtue. Now, don't picture some knight in shining armor. In Stoicism, virtue is all about being a good human being. Things like wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Basically, trying your best to be a decent person, even when no one's looking. Think of it as leveling up your moral character. Next, we've got reason. This is all about using logic and clear thinking to navigate the world. Instead of letting our emotions run wild like a toddler who's missed their nap, Stoics try to step back, analyze the situation, and respond thoughtfully. Easier said than done, I know, especially when someone cuts you off in traffic. But hey, that's the goal, right? And finally, acceptance. This doesn't mean rolling over and letting bad things happen. It means recognizing the difference between what you can control, your thoughts and actions, and what you can't, pretty much everything else. Accepting this reality can be surprisingly liberating. It's like finally admitting you can't control the weather. You can either grab an umbrella or complain about getting wet. Stoicism suggests grabbing the umbrella. The beauty of modern Stoicism is that it takes these timeless principles and applies them to the unique challenges of our time. We're not battling gladiators, but we are battling information overload, social media pressure, and the constant urge to compare our highlight reel to everyone else's. Stoicism offers a framework for navigating this modern jungle with a little more sanity and a lot more inner peace. Okay, so who are these modern-day Stoic superheroes? Well, they're not necessarily wearing capes or flying around, although that would be pretty cool. They're everyday people from all walks of life who are using Stoic principles to live more meaningful and resilient lives. You might not even know they're practicing Stoicism, but their actions speak volumes. Take, for example, the entrepreneur who faces constant setbacks and market fluctuations. Instead of panicking every time things get tough, they focus on their effort, their strategy, and learning from their mistakes. They understand that external factors are often beyond their control, but their response isn't. It's like they've got a mental "Serenity Now" button that they actually know how to use. Or consider the athlete who faces intense pressure and the possibility of defeat. A modern Stoic athlete focuses on their training, their performance in the moment, and accepting the outcome, win or lose. They know they can't control the other team, the referee's calls, or even a rogue gust of wind, but they can control their effort and their attitude. That's some serious mental toughness right there. We also see Stoicism in the artist who faces criticism and creative blocks. Instead of getting discouraged by negative feedback or feeling paralyzed by perfectionism, they focus on the process of creation itself. They understand that their worth isn't tied to external validation, but to the act of bringing their vision to life. It's like they've got an internal muse that's also a really good therapist. And let's not forget the activist who fights for what they believe in, despite facing opposition and slow progress. A Stoic-minded activist focuses on their values, their actions, and the impact they can make, even if the results aren't immediate. They understand that change takes time, and that their responsibility is to act with integrity and perseverance. Talk about inspiring. These individuals, whether they consciously identify as Stoics or not, embody the core principles of the philosophy. They demonstrate resilience in the face of adversity, make decisions based on reason rather than emotion, and find contentment in focusing on what they can control. Their lives are living proof that Stoicism isn't just an ancient theory. It's a practical toolkit for navigating the complexities of modern life. All right, so these modern Stoic leaders are pretty inspiring. But how do we actually apply this stuff to our own lives? How can we go from knowing about Stoicism to doing Stoicism? Well, it's all about incorporating some simple yet powerful practices into our daily routines. Let's start with journaling. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dear Diary. But Stoic journaling is a bit different. It's about reflecting on your day, identifying your reactions to events, and examining whether those reactions were based on reason or emotion. Try asking yourself, what was within my control today? What wasn't? How could I have responded more virtuously? It's like giving your brain a little nightly checkup. Next up, meditation and mindfulness. Stoic meditation isn't necessarily about emptying your mind. Good luck with that. It's more about focusing on the present moment and recognizing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. Mindfulness practices, like paying attention to your breath or your senses, can help you cultivate this awareness. Think of it as training your brain to be less of a drama llama. Another powerful technique is negative visualization. Sounds gloomy, right? But it's actually incredibly helpful. It involves imagining bad things happening, losing your job, a relationship ending, your phone breaking, the horror. This isn't about being pessimistic. It's about appreciating what you have and preparing yourself mentally for potential setbacks. It's like a mental fire drill for your emotions. We also have the practice of focusing on what you can control. This is a big one. How much time do we waste worrying about things we have absolutely no power over? The traffic, the weather, other people's opinions. Stoicism encourages us to identify these things and let them go. Instead, focus your energy on your own thoughts, actions, and choices. It's like finally realizing you're the director of your own movie, not just a stressed-out extra. And finally, practicing gratitude. Taking time each day to appreciate the good things in your life, no matter how small, can shift your perspective and build resilience. Even on a tough day, there's usually something to be grateful for. A warm cup of coffee, a supportive friend, the fact that you haven't been eaten by a bear yet. Incorporating these practices into your daily life can have a profound impact on your mental well-being. You'll likely find yourself reacting to stressful situations with more calm and clarity, making more rational decisions, and experiencing greater contentment, regardless of your external circumstances. It's like upgrading your mental software from panic mode to peace and productivity. Now, let's delve a little deeper into the journeys of some modern individuals who have demonstrably used Stoic principles to overcome significant challenges. These aren't necessarily famous figures, but their stories offer powerful lessons in resilience and the practical application of Stoicism. Let's call our first example Sarah, the startup survivor. Sarah poured her heart and soul into her tech startup, working tirelessly for years. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, a major investor pulled out, leaving her on the brink of collapse. Instead of succumbing to despair and blaming external factors, Sarah drew on Stoic principles. She focused on what she could control: her efforts to find new funding, her communication with her team, and her own mindset. She accepted the setback as a reality, analyzed what went wrong, and used it as a learning opportunity. She didn't let the external event define her worth or her future. Eventually, through sheer perseverance and a Stoic focus on action, she managed to pivot her business and find new success. Sarah's story teaches us the importance of focusing on our effort and accepting what we can't control, even in the face of major setbacks. Our next inspiring figure is David, the recovering athlete. David was a promising young athlete whose career was tragically cut short by a severe injury. Devastated and facing an uncertain future, David could have easily fallen into self-pity and resentment. However, he embraced Stoicism as a way to navigate his new reality. He focused on what he could still do: his rehabilitation, his mental fortitude, and finding new ways to contribute to the sporting community. He practiced gratitude for the progress he was making, however small, and accepted the limitations of his physical condition without letting it define his identity. David's journey highlights the Stoic principle of finding meaning and purpose even in the face of loss and limitation. He went on to become a successful coach, inspiring others with his resilience and wisdom. Finally, let's talk about Maria, the community advocate. Maria dedicated her life to fighting for social justice, often facing apathy, opposition, and even hostility. There were times when the progress felt slow and the challenges overwhelming. In those moments, Maria relied on Stoic principles to keep going. She focused on her values, her commitment to making a difference, and the small victories along the way. She understood that she couldn't control everyone's opinions or the pace of change, but she could control her own actions and her dedication to the cause. Maria's story demonstrates the power of Stoicism in maintaining perseverance and finding meaning in the face of adversity, especially when fighting for something bigger than yourself. These are just a few examples, and there are countless others out there. The key takeaway is that these modern Stoic leaders, whether they know it or not, show us that Stoicism isn't just a theoretical philosophy. It's a practical guide for navigating the ups and downs of life with greater resilience, wisdom, and inner peace. Their stories remind us that even in the face of significant challenges, we always have the power to choose our response. So, you've heard about modern Stoicism and some inspiring examples. Now, how do you start your own journey down this ancient yet surprisingly relevant path? The good news is, you don't need a toga or a philosophy degree to get started. It's all about taking small, consistent steps. First off, read some books. There are tons of great resources out there, both classic texts and modern interpretations. For beginners, A Guide to the Good Life by William B. Irvine or The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman are excellent starting points. If you want to dive into the OG stuff, check out Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, Seneca's Letters from a Stoic, or Epictetus' Enchiridion. Don't worry, they're not as intimidating as they sound. Think of them as self-help books written by really smart people a long, long time ago. Next, explore podcasts and online communities. There are some fantastic podcasts dedicated to Stoicism, offering insightful discussions and practical advice. Platforms like Reddit also have active Stoicism communities where you can connect with others, ask questions, and share your experiences. It's like having a virtual study group for your mental well-being. Start practicing those techniques we talked about. Pick one or two that resonate with you and try to incorporate them into your daily routine. Maybe start with a few minutes of journaling each evening or practicing mindful breathing throughout the day. The key is consistency, even if it's just for a few minutes at a time. Think of it like building a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger it gets. Don't be afraid to experiment and find what works for you. Stoicism isn't a rigid set of rules. It's a flexible framework. Some techniques might resonate more with you than others, and that's perfectly fine. The goal is to find what helps you live a more virtuous, rational, and accepting life. It's your own personal journey, so feel free to customize it. And most importantly, be patient with yourself. Learning to apply Stoicism takes time and effort. You're not going to become a perfectly rational, unflappable Stoic overnight. Spoiler alert, no one ever does. There will be days when you lose your cool or get caught up in things you can't control. That's okay. The important thing is to keep learning, keep practicing, and keep striving to live a more Stoic life, one step at a time. Well, folks, that's our little jaunt down the modern Stoic path. Remember, life's going to keep throwing those metaphorical dodgeballs at your head. But with a little Stoic wisdom in your mental toolkit, you'll be much better equipped to duck, weave, and maybe even catch a few. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to contemplate the impermanence of my snack choices. Until next time, stay resilient, stay rational, and try not to let the little things ruffle your perfectly Stoic feathers. And hey, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more explorations into the art of not losing your marbles in this wonderfully weird world. Farewell, fellow travelers on the path of inner peace.